Safe and well. Let's talk some Torah. One of the beautiful things that comes about every time we return to the Joseph story is what might on the surface seem like, a young adult novel mixed in with God is an incredibly powerful story of descent and return and ascent. We see that Joseph is not set up for success, nor actually were his brothers, nor were their father. And here we are again, ready to see that sometimes the universe has not conspired to make our hearts happy. And yet, when we begin with that kind of cynicism, hard-earned wisdom, and cynicism because we know the story and it's painful, we might give up hope, but that's if you don't open your eyes and you don't see the story itself. Joseph begins at the pinnacle, at the height of heights, with this beautiful coat that his father gives him. And he lords it over people. The gifts that were given, including his incredible prophetic power with dreams, all of that, in his eyes, belongs to him. And in a flash, it goes away. He didn't see the warning signs. His brothers couldn't even say hello to him, says the Parsha. And his father didn't intervene. Then one day his father sends him out to the field to go check on his brothers, to be the tattletale, really. And he finds them, and they hate him, and they hurt him, and they throw him down into a pit. And from the pit he gets sold, and from there he gets thrown down into Egypt. And from there he ascends a bit because he has these gifts. But from that position of privilege, Potiphar's lead servant, he gets thrown into a dungeon in Egypt. He is at the bottom of the bottom. Now, I know that we turn to each other each day for inspiration and for hope, but this is a very complicated day, friends, and I think many of us already were aware of it before we began, and I want to make sure that as we journey with Joseph to the lowest possible point, on a day 10 years to the day, 10 years to the day after the Sandy Hook massacre, where we were at the lowest of the low, which for me, very far away from the events, was a life-changing moment. I want to be there for a moment because how else can we remember the 26 souls ripped from the fabric of life? Needlessly, stupidly. How can we be there? So I don't have words, really. I have a lot of emotions. I'm imagining you do too. And on this journey with Joseph, sometimes we're at the very bottom. It might be a gift that the Torah gives us to bring us right there and for it not to be the end of the story. But if we are open-eyed and honest, grounded, alive, then we go with the Torah on this journey. Not with joy, but with honesty. Grief is an honest emotion, perhaps the most honest emotion. It doesn't come when invited, it doesn't go when told, and it doesn't just visit once. The Torah gives us space for this. The Torah doesn't begin the Joseph story by saying, don't worry, it'll all be okay. Andrew Lloyd Webber's musical, Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat, does, remember? The narrator says, we've read the book and you come out on top. Go, 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 Joseph. That's a gentle storytelling. The Torah is not like that. The Torah drags us down with Joseph. Now, if you're holding either a book or you're at the Torah with a scroll, or in Sephardic tradition, the scroll is this way. you know that there's more coming. But if you suspend your outsider perspective, you forget what you know, which is actually a very powerful way to read Torah. You're in the dungeon with Joseph, who had it all, treated it like it was nothing, and then had it all taken away. You're there with Jacob, who is inconsolable. He says, I will go down to my grave, Evel Sheol, a mourning that will kill me. And then the story continues. One thing after another brings Joseph out of the dark, offers him some light. What will you do with the gift this time, Joseph? Now, I know we're not there yet. There are multiple weeks where we continue that story. But having touched bottom in this week's story, it's so important for us to give ourselves that glimmer of hope, not to deny this position, but the glimmer of hope that there will be light. Those beautiful children and those beautiful teachers and all of the souls that we have lost, 40,000 a year in America, to the scourge of gun violence. 1% of that looks like Sandy Hook. And that's far too much. But it tells you what an incomplete picture we have if on this anniversary of such tragedy, we don't look at the individual lives. Of the 40,000 lives lost to guns in America every year, half of them are to suicide. Can we do something about that, knowing that if we don't, we're all in the dark? Can we actually start to tend to the underlying causes of suicide, which are only amplified with the presence of a gun? Can we talk about the other half of gun violence deaths, less than half, which are homicides, and actually look at handguns? Can we look at intimate partner violence, which is something that is amplified by the presence of a gun? And can we look deep within and acknowledge that this is a problem that you can't legislate away? I can't legislate back the lives of the 26 souls that we lost 10 years ago today. But what I can do is say there are glimmers of light that are calling our hope back into our bodies. Just pull it back in. Joseph, who had it all and didn't even notice it, wasn't grateful for it, had a life that was blessed, privileged, too much so. Didn't act modestly, didn't act for others, just unfiltered, poured out his self-pride. He was brought to a place of wisdom. He was humbled, lost it all, until every element of his gift was channeled for the sake of others. He saved the world by interpreting dreams, and did so humbly. It's not from me, it's from God, he will one day say. Friends, Jewish tradition tells us that saving one life is saving a world. Joseph saved the world, and so can you. And so can I. We might never even know that we did it, because something we did brought some humanity back to our legislators' conscience. Something that we did saved the life of a child because we pointed at the blasphemy of bulletproof backpacks, which should never need to be. We help people understand that in the best of Jewish tradition, weapons are never beautiful. The glorification of guns is itself part of the problem. Weapons may be necessary for self-defense. The ethical use of force to preserve life is a mandate in the Torah and in rabbinic tradition, certainly. But we don't like that. We don't want to need that. Guns are ugly. All they are designed to do is kill. They are ugly. We will use a gun to save a life. I would use a gun to save a life. But why should we need them? And we dare not worship them. Today is a very hard day for countless families. But friends, when you really pay attention to the data, every day, so far in American history, especially these last 30 years, with the exponential presence of guns, more than 400 million guns in a country with 329 million people, tells you that the problem is not going to physically go anywhere, but emotionally and culturally it must. Today is December 14th. We're with Joseph at the bottom. And there's no promise that the story gets better anytime quick. But there is a mandate, friends, to not take for granted the life we've been given and not slow down in our efforts to make sure that life is a blessing. If you feel helpless, I understand that. If you feel overwhelmed by grief, I understand that. But you will not feel overwhelmed by grief forever. It will come and it will go. That's what grief does. I don't say so to judge anyone. I don't say so as if I could relieve myself of the grief I do feel sometimes. But powerlessness is not an option. No one, no human being is powerless. We are created in the divine image with a gift of life, which means, at least according to the Kabbalah, which I take very seriously, that we have a fraction of God's infinite power at our disposal. So friends, what will you do with your power to do good and to save a life today in memory of the 26 sweet children and committed teachers? Powerlessness is not an option. Not only that, it's not a reality. If you and I are listening and talking and watching and breathing, we are so powerful. Speak your truth. Call a friend. Call your school. Call a nearby school and say, I was thinking about what today must mean for you. How can I be there for you? What can I do to change things just a drop, to remind you to have hope too? On a day like today, we dare not take for granted the blessing of life. We must fight for it. With the gentlest and fiercest parts of our souls, we must fight for it. So I invite you, friends, to allow the grief to take its course. That's what it'll do. And in a strange way, maybe even naming it, maybe even talking to it. Oh, hi, friend. I remember you. You're very familiar to me, I say to grief. I don't like when you're here, but you are a sharp reminder that all is not as it should be. So, you can stay as long as you're going to stay. I'll be ready for you to go when it's time. And when you're gone, I have good to do. I have living to do. I will remember. And when you come back, maybe I'll have done something good. I'll teach you that. So may the memory, friends, of those we lost on such a terrible day, may they be a blessing. May they animate us to do great good. And may we know less sorrow. Amen. Let me sing a different tune, friends. I wish you a good day. This is the tune that feels right for now. I love See you tomorrow, friends.